So how do we actually quit porn? Like, actually quit porn. If you're like me, or you're like most everybody that I've ever encountered on the internet or in my own recovery journey or that I work with personally, your experience of trying to quit porn has probably gone something like this. You've gotten to some point where you've identified that porn is actually a problem, whether that was through encountering consequences in your own life, through social difficulties or mental health issues, or maybe it devastated a relationship or is threatening to devastate a relationship or is preventing you from getting into a relationship at all. Or maybe you encountered some kind of personal development or self-help person, whether it was Andrew Huberman or Jordan Peterson or Hamza or whoever, who talked to you about the problems of porn and the fact that one of the most important things that you can do is to get it out of your life. And then you started taking advice that these people had to give, some of them at least. And a lot of this advice was centered around this idea that what you need to do in order to quit pornography is to increase your willpower and likely take a cold shower challenge or start doing push-ups when you get an urge and start exercising and start implementing some healthy habits into your life, and boom, problem solved. Just like them, allegedly, porn should be out of your life for good. And what you found is that this problem of trying to increase your willpower and just implement healthy habits into your life is not cutting it. Somehow, pornography, like some kind of disgusting Kool-Aid man, is bursting through the wall of your life every couple days or weeks, or let's be honest, hours, and taking you for a ride that you don't want to be on. And you may sit there in the moment trying to talk yourself out of what you're about to do, but you experience some kind of perverse twist in your mind where Dr. Jekyll turns into Mr. Hyde, and somehow the best idea that your brain can come up with is that watching porn is the best thing that you can do right now. And that's what your experience is probably like. Riding this cycle of making unbelievably angry, sincere promises that this will be the last time and that you will get it out of your life, and you know all the consequences, and yet you find yourself somehow, days or weeks later, in the exact same spot, staring at yourself in the exact same mirror, repeating the exact same words, and nothing's really changed. Why? Well, one of the things that I learned when I got into recovery about 4.5 years ago was that all of the advice that I ever received that centered around solving the problem of my addiction by increasing my willpower was fundamentally flawed, and it never worked. And quite frankly, it is shocking to me. It is shocking that people give this advice so much when it comes to quitting pornography, given how much we know about how this advice doesn't work for recovering from any other addiction. It's mind-boggling to me. What I want to talk to you about in this video is the way that actually works. And I want to narrow in specifically on a very key issue that I've never heard discussed in another video before, which is what the actual root of the problem is. There's a lot more to recovery than this, but I really want to get this part across because it is so fundamental to understanding why none of this willpower stuff ever moves the needle. Why doesn't it ever really seem to solve the problem? So first, what I would like to do is to set the context and the scene. I think it's incredibly important to understand what it actually is that we are up against behind the screen when we're talking about quitting pornography. Now, I made a video that dives deeper into this, and you'll see it linked somewhere. But I want to give a quick summary, and I want to remind us that when we're talking about the porn industry, it's more than just images on a screen. We are talking about a wing, like a limb, if you will, of a industry that is taking the world by storm, which I once heard beautifully called the dopamine industrial complex. A series of businesses whose entire revenue model is built on the back of capturing your attention and selling it to advertisers. And it is creating something which I also heard beautifully called a race to the bottom of the brainstem. These companies are making all of their money from capturing your attention, and the best way to capture your attention is to target and to trigger the most deep and primal parts of who you are. So things like a survival response like outrage and anger or fear or sexual attraction. Boom, here we go. In comes pornography. Pornography is a $100 billion global industry that is powered by the AI algorithms of social media. It is selecting content for you every time you visit a website and attempting to steer and mold and direct your sexual tastes and preferences until you find yourself in a sexual territory that is so unrecognizable to you that you are no longer capable of having real relationships with real people, and their services are your only viable option for a sexual or romantic relationship. That is an industry that is capitalizing on your loneliness. The more lonely and sexually dysfunctional you are, the more porn is going to make money from you. That is the goal, whether explicitly said or not. Excuse me. The thing to understand, right, is this famous quote that Tristan Harris said at one point, I believe: if you are not paying, it's because you are the product. Our goal has to be to approach the problem of solving pornography knowing that we need to proactively put systems into our life to protect our attention and to protect our minds from being capitalized on by bad actors. In the same way that you would filter water that was being polluted and dumped into by some kind of industry before you drank it, we need to start filtering the content that we consume with our minds to rid it of the toxins and the bad actors that want to abuse and use our attention for nefarious purposes. The porn industry obviously being the main one. So, setting the scene. The next thing that I want to start to talk about is what is the actual root of a porn addiction. The first thing to understand, and I know this may sound kind of crazy, but take a seat, buckle up, and bear with me. Porn is not your problem. I know. Porn is not your problem. Now, don't get me wrong. When you watch porn and you watch it compulsively, you are experiencing very direct, acute consequences from doing so. It is frying your dopamine circuitry. It is giving you brain fog. It is making you experience all of these psychological and neurological consequences. But porn is not actually the root of the problem. Porn is the solution to your problem. Now, let me unpack that a little bit. Have you ever asked yourself, why is it that I can't just watch porn once and then put it down and then go on with my life for weeks or months without ever even thinking about it, and then maybe return to it, get something out of it, put it down again, and then continue to live my life? In the same way that somebody who might drink alcohol who doesn't have a problem with it, might be able to have a beer with friends on Friday and then not drink for 6 weeks, not think anything of it, and then go out and maybe have a couple shots at a party, have a beer here or there, have a fun night, maybe regret it the next day. And it just doesn't really impact their life that much. Why is it that porn specifically is compulsive? Why do we experience it as something that we cannot say no to? Something else is going on underneath the pornography itself. We have a relationship to it that is extremely addictive. So one of the things that I want you to consider is that porn is not your problem. It is the solution to your problem. That your life, being you, unmedicated by pornography, is somehow unmanageable or unbearable. That maybe you are watching porn, not because porn is just super exciting or something like that, but because you are feeling extremely lonely and isolated, and porn is the closest substitute for real human intimacy and touch that you have available to you. Maybe you're watching porn because you feel extremely depressed and you are scrambling for any kind of relief that you can find. Maybe you are watching porn because you don't have any real meaning or purpose in your life and you're trying to find some way to feel connected to a meaningful pursuit that allows you to feel alive, if only for a few moments. What I would like you to consider is that you are carrying around some kind of emotional unmanageability or spiritual unmanageability that porn is a temporary solution for you for. As in, you are using porn to temporarily numb out what it is like to be you in this moment. The question to ask is, what relationship do I have with pornography? What problem in my life is it solving? How do I feel prior to the times that I use pornography? What things are triggering me the most? Is it seeing couples on Instagram? Is it feeling stressed? Is it feeling bored? Is it what feelings are going on inside of you prior to using pornography? And then when we ask ourselves this question, what problem is my porn addiction trying to solve, albeit counterproductively and unsuccessfully? This is where we start to get down into the actual root of the problem, where we can identify the emotions that are driving an addictive relationship to pornography. Rather than attacking the weeds, right? We want to go for the root. And this is how we do it. Until we start addressing the emotional and the spiritual roots of our porn addiction, it's just going to keep coming back like a trick candle. It doesn't matter how many times we try to muster up all the willpower in the world and blow out the trick candle, it's always going to come back. We have to start approaching the problem of our porn addiction from a much different angle and a much different perspective if we want to find lasting freedom. The next thing that I want to talk to you about, which graduating up now to another rather absurd claim, similar to that porn is not actually your problem, is that porn is not actually what you're addicted to. Now, I know, again, I want you to bear with me, and I want you to consider that there is an addictive process that is more fundamental that your porn addiction is stemming out of. That is actually the thing that we are addicted to. It is the attitude that watching pornography is constantly training into us. And if you pay close attention, you will notice that, I promise you, it shows up in other areas of your life as well. Maybe it's starting to leak into your real relationships with people around you. Maybe it's starting to leak into your dating life and the way that you relate to women or to people that you're attracted to. And this thing, this fundamental addictive process, is the word lust. And I know, before you get your knickers in a bunch, the word lust has a lot of connotations. And I'm not coming at you in this video with a religious agenda to try to convert you into believing anything. The word lust is a general human experience. And what lust is when selfishness and self-centeredness take control of our sexuality and start using and abusing it as a means to fill something that we feel is lacking within ourselves, or solving an emotional problem that our sexuality is not equipped to solve. Now, what's a good analogy to compare this to? When somebody has an eating disorder, they have a lustful relationship to food. They are eating their way out of an emotional problem. In the case of an eating disorder, it's rather easy for us to see that food is never going to solve the problem of their loneliness. Food is never going to solve the problem of their shame. You can never eat yourself into feeling like a lovable person. But the same is true of our sexuality. We can never orgasm our way out of existential loneliness. We can never orgasm our way out of hating ourselves. Yet all the time, we find ourselves in the situation where we are using our sexuality in order to numb out these feelings and try to apply some sort of band-aid to them. So lust, another way to define this, is an attitude that is demanding that we use a natural instinct, like our sexuality, for unnatural purposes or towards unnatural ends, such as making me feel less lonely. It turns out that no amount of porn is going to provide the love, intimacy, or real human connection that is experienced within a real relationship. Lust, this attitude of taking, regardless of the consequences. It is, I want this, I want what I want, when I want it, how I want it, regardless of the consequences. It is a gnawing, craving, empty feeling inside of ourselves that is constantly taking from others in order to fill what is lacking within ourselves. Lust objectifies. It treats other people as sexual objects, and their only purpose through the eyes of lust is for my sexual gratification. When we watch porn, we are relating to pornography out of this attitude. And if you start to pay close attention, I promise you will see it there too. And I also promise, as I mentioned before, that you will see it in your other relationships in your life. You will notice that as you watch more and more pornography, you start to objectify the people that you're attracted to in your life. That girl at the gym is no longer a real human being. She is a collection of body parts, and you are taking a look at her in order to get some sort of internal high or hit off of how attractive you find her body. You are taking from her in order to fill what is lacking within yourself. You are not coming from a place, an attitude or perspective of appreciation or gratitude for the fact that an incredibly beautiful human being is standing before you. You are looking at a collection of body parts in your mind. That is what lust is. And I promise you that this is the thing that we're actually addicted to. So when we're approaching the problem of recovery, there's a few things that we have to understand. First and foremost, like I said, you are up against an industry where if you do not take massive action to protect your mind, you are going to be the victim. You are not going to win against a $100 billion industry that has figured out not how to overcome your strengths, but how to overcome your weaknesses. You have to protect yourself. Second, you have to understand that porn is not actually your problem, right? There is something deeper going on inside of you that needs to be addressed, and a lack of willpower is not the problem. No matter how hard you try, no matter how much willpower you muster up, you are never going to solve the problem of the fact that you feel like an ashamed person who's not worthy of relationships. No matter how hard you try, you're not going to feel less lonely. No matter how hard you try, you're not going to feel more connected to life. No matter how hard you try, you're not going to feel like you have a stronger sense of purpose or meaning. So we need to abandon this idea that what's going on in our life is a willpower deficiency and turn our attention instead to addressing the emotional and spiritual roots of the problem. The next thing to understand is that if you want to solve the pornography problem, you actually need to start dealing with lust. Now, this intersects to what I just said. Why is lust the thing that we're appealing to solve our emotional problems? Where does the sense of inner scarcity come from? Why do we feel like we need to take from others in order to fill what is lacking within ourselves? Why do we feel a deficiency of love and the ability to give value out of ourselves and pursue healthy connections and intimate relationships where we can experience healthy sexuality in a way that is nourishing, enriching, fulfilling, and all of the great things that every single one of us wants to experience out of a relationship? That was a lot, but I really want you to take that home and think about it. It is out of these core perspectives that I just talked to you about that the way that works emerges. And in future videos, I want to dive into that, but I, as you can tell, am pretty good at talking too much. So I want to stop this video here. If you found anything that I talked about in this video thought-provoking, if the idea of porn not being your problem was confusing, if you don't think I explained it very well, if you have any questions about it, please drop a comment. Similarly, if you have anything about this idea with lust, if you have any prejudice against the use of that word, if you don't fully understand what I'm talking about, again, if you have any questions, drop something below in the comments and let's start a discussion about what you guys think. And last but not least, if you are somebody who is struggling deeply with pornography in your life, you want it out, you want to start getting into healthy relationships, you want to repair the relationships that you're in, I want you to go to the link in my bio and I want you to book a free call with me. I want to help you get this problem solved. Freedom and healing and recovery are available to you and you're worth it. Get on the call. You have nothing to lose. It's totally free. I'll see you there. Thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next video. Peace.